Dynamics in chess. So, what is dynamics in chess? Dynamics is playing according to the flow of the position. The in chess, according to the nature. Okay, so it's like a deep understanding about the tactical and strategical elements. And Garry was so strong in dynamic chess, and still he is strong only. In 90s, he was so famous. Like whenever Garry plays, like the game ends mostly in 20 to 25 moves. Most of the time, he beats a lot of strong players in less number of moves. He makes a lot of sacrifices, and he builds a very strong attack. Okay, and there are many things in dynamics. To understand dynamics, you should know like a lot of concepts, and you should be very good in these concepts. And few important concepts are initiative, momentum, flexibility, imbalance, and compensation. And compensation is something very important to understand if you are going to make some sacrifice in chess, because when you sacrifice you are giving some material, and if you don't understand the compensation, then it will be very difficult to continue, or you could end up in disaster. So understanding the compensation is very important to play dynamic chess, even though there are um, many ideas in dynamic chess, but compensation is something very important. And I'm going to show how Garry plays this dynamic chess, and his compensation are always excellent. The compensation could be like when you sacrifice something, it could be like you can get some material in return, like for example, let's say you can give a exchange and win some pawns. Example, like you are giving a rook and taking knight and 2 pawns as compensation, or giving a queen sacrifice and taking a rook or bishop. So there are many things, okay, in compensation. Unless it works, it won't be like easy to like play dynamic chess. I can show practically, because certain things are not so easy to explain, but I can just show it over the board. So this is one very famous game Kasparov plays with Elmer Magarmo in training match. Okay, so here you can see his compensation was so great. Like he got some compensation in some squares also. Like so, let me just show. So the game went knight f3. Garry, playing black, went with knight f6. White played d4. Black went e6 and c4. Okay, so he gets the pawn to the center, and then knight c3. The bishop has to be developed. Bishop e7. Okay, bishop g5. So Garry just gains a tempo, attacking the bishop. So they went bishop h4 and castle. e3. Okay. So here in this kind of setup, this bishop usually is slightly bad. I mean, you have to activate it somehow. So there are a lot of plans like developed. So like a6 with the idea to take and then get b5, bb7. These are very popular. Okay, in this game, Garry plays b6, is trying to get the bishop to b7. So the bishop is ready to go to b7. Queen b3. White played queen b3, and then the bishop went to b7. So white captured, bishop captures, and pawn takes d5. We have to recapture with the pawn, not with the bishop. Pawn takes to get very strong control in the center. And now you can see at some point black will play c5 soon, if not immediately, soon, because this bishop needs activity and open diagonal. So what white played here was rook to d1. So rook d1. Now it looks like the c5 play is impossible because that would open the rook line. Okay, so here we can see Garry creates some strong play here. His deep understanding for dynamic chess. I mean about dynamic chess. His deep understanding about dynamic chess. So there are many concepts in dynamic chess, as I told, like initiative, momentum, flexibility, and compensation. So guess what Garry played here? Black to play. So Garry feels this queen should be attacked somehow with a tempo. So he goes pawn to c5. Pawn c5 opens the diagonal. Okay, so it looks like pawn c5 is not a good move, but in fact it's a very strong move which has a very long term compensation. So white accepts, and the idea is to play knight d7. Now trying to get the knight to c5. If they take, we should go knight c5. So a lot of piece activity, and we have excellent compensation. If they go queen c2, we can always take a b5. So we have open lines, and the compensation is very strong here. So bishop c3 is already threatened. If they take bc3, the pawns will be broken. Then we can go rook a3, queen a8. We have very long term compensation here. So knight d7, c5 is justified here. So d takes, and in the game even knight d7. So white played c6. So bishop has to take, and then white played knight d4. The d4 square looks strong for white because there is no pawns on either side. The e file or c file to chase the knight. So it looks like a very strong square, and it's attacking the bishop. So now Garry uses a very strong idea to get his pieces active. So what did Garry play here? You can think for a moment. Okay, this bishop wants to join the play. So first we can take on d4. If they take with the pawn, so there's open file, and we should not play rook e8 immediately because that would help to develop this bishop and they would castle. So first we will stop this bishop coming out by putting pressure and connecting the rooks. So there's a good communication between these rooks. Both the rooks are connected. So this bishop won't be able to move because g2 is hanging, and then we have rook e8. So we already have a great attacking chance here for the sacrificed pawn. I mean, here he sacrificed the pawn. Okay. So trying to gain the initiative also. So coming back, so rook d1, c5. As I mentioned, knight d7, c6, bishop takes, knight d4, bishop takes, pawn takes. Okay, queen g5. So rook e8 is coming. Even though the pawns are equal, but the pressure on g2 and e file is very strong. So let's go back. So bishop c6, knight d4. So bishop has to take. Then white takes with the rook. Okay. Now it looks like this bishop is really bad. Okay. So it looks like black is having a very bad pawn structure. If black doesn't play dynamic chess here, then white is slowly going to get the bishop here, and f3, castle, and rook d1, and soon this pawn will be lost and the game will be lost. So now they balance with dynamic chess here, the position. Okay, so Garry is balancing it with dynamic chess. So knight to c5, attacking the queen. So the queen went back. Now we can find a move for black. How to activate the black's pieces. Still the king is not developed. It's stuck in the center. So black has development already. Black's king is already safe, and all these pieces are developed. Okay, white is still behind in development. So if we don't attack here, then they will play bishop e2 castle, and soon the d5 pawn is going to fall and white will win. So here Garry plays knight to e6. Very important to play knight e6, as you have to quickly open this line. So rook has to go to d2 and then d4, understanding the compensation. Okay, so you can see like once they play d4, black gets compensation. Let's analyze in detail. So if they take, what are the compensating factors? First of all, this f4 square is weak, so black is getting chance to play knight f4 at some point. That is one thing. And then there is an open file, the e file, so rook can come there. So as a compensation, he gets open file and the f4 square. And not only that, the bishop on c6 can also join the game. Very strong. So the e file, the f4 square, and the bishop. Okay, so there are a lot of compensation for the pawn. So he takes d4. He gets these three compensation, right? So rook e8 creates a simple discovery. Okay. Rook e8. Now this bishop won't be able to move here because g2 pressure is very strong. If they play d5, trying to give a double attack, so we have to go knight f4 and bishop e2. Now this knight, once it comes to f4, it is going to create a lot of problems on these light squares, and we have the bishop. So the king is not castle, so we must go knight g2, king f1, and the bishop can return to d7, aiming these squares. So we'll see what happens if they capture. If they capture, queen can go to g5, strong attack. King won't be able to go to f3 because there is queen g4. If king comes here, we have queen g4. It's a checkmate. So king has to go to f1 and then bishop to h3. You can see like a lot of problems here on the light squares. After knight f4, the light squares became very vulnerable. So now the queen also can invade on g2. Very powerful. And this bishop is pinned. This rook is hanging. If they go rook f1, we can take. So you can see how Garry calculated all this. So he plays d4. A very strong dynamic chess. So d4, they took, rook went to e8. Okay. And white plays f3. Now how to continue here? We have a discovery check like this, but we are not going to capture it immediately, because if nothing happens, then the knight will be in pin. So if we go queen h4, they are going to block with g3. So Garry is waiting for the right time to make use of the discovery. So bishop takes f3. This idea is very powerful. Why bishop f3 is so powerful is because if they capture with the g pawn, we have queen h4 and there is no piece to block, no pawn to block. Okay, that's what happened in the game. And the queen takes is not good because we have the discovery check. Right, queen takes, we can go knight takes. Very strong. Queen takes. Yeah, knight d4 is very strong. If king f2, we can take. So they have to take rook d8. We can bring this rook. So this rook is already entering there. So king f3. Then we can get the rook there. Rook d2 is also there, but we can get the rook here. So they have problems. So bishop f3. So in the game they took gf3. Queen went to h4. Now two options. Either they have to block with the rook or king e2. King e2 is very bad because we have a discovered check and a chance to give a double check. We can take this square. So the knight has to go to f4. Hitting the e2 and the d3. So it's a checkmate. So queen h4. The rook has to block. Then we can take on d4. The king won't be able to move because then it loses the rook. There's no support. Knight e2 is a terrible move because this is pinned, this is pinned. So knight f3 mates. So they have to go bishop to e2. Now we can take. So in the game he took knight f3, check. So all moves are forced here. And apart from this, we also have this. Okay, so his pieces are so active. So queen h3 check. So rook has to block. Now this rook is pinned. So we are going to quickly add more pressure to the pinned piece. So we can go knight h4. So they have to go rook hg1. Okay. Now all these pieces are so strong. But still, this rook on a8 is not in the game. So this is the only piece which is not participated in the game. So you can make it more powerful. Garry makes it more powerful by putting it on rook d8. Okay, so rook 2, rook a d8. Rook a d8. Queen went to e1. Why did they play queen e1? because they somehow want to exchange the queen and get rid of this attack. Okay, okay. Here you can see the piece coordination. The king is not having many squares to move. This rook is g1 rook is tied to the defense of the g2. The e2 bishop is pinned. Okay, so e2 bishop is pinned. So pinned piece are always bad. There is a proverb also. The power of the pinned piece is only imaginary. That means, in general, if the bishop can control these squares, since it's pinned, it won't be able to. So you can take advantage of that weakness by putting the rook to d3. Very strong move from Garry. Stops the queen coming to g3, and also a very strong improvement for the rook. So now white couldn't take this rook because of the pin. So he tries to get the queen out. So he played queen to f2. So now he's threatening. Now Garry plays very strong move here. All these pieces are excellently placed. So knight to f3. Once again, this rook is also pinned. So knight to f3. Very strong. Okay. So now white is unable to move anything. Because if he moves the queen, you can see we have knight d2, which is a very simple win. So queen is not going to go there. If they take this, then we can take. Queen is lost. And the amazing part is, if they take this rook, this line is opened and king has no mobility and this piece is pinned. So knight goes to h2, checkmate. See, pin, checkmate. So knight f3, strongly played. Knight f3, very powerful. So knight f3. So rook had to go to h1 to defend. Now how to improve here? Once the rook move to h1, we won't be able to take on h2 because there is defense. So right now the rook is under attack. So we have to coordinate this. So rook goes to e3. So now all black pieces are well organized here, and the white pieces are tied. White won't be able to move the bishop because we have rook f3, and they won't be able to move the knight because this is hanging, and rook g1 is also not good. There is knight h2 coming, but we are not going to immediately take. We'll wait for the moment. So rook g1. Now white is like almost like in a zugzwang kind of position because they have pieces but they don't have good moves. So king h8, just a waiting move. Garry understands that white is not having good moves, so he easily breaks the coordination. If the bishop moves, rook is going to enter on e1. So the bishop has no move. If the knight moves, then we can take on e2. If the queen moves, we have knight e2 and we can take the queen. So there is no move. So king h8. So here I think rook g1. Here itself we can go king h8. Yeah, king h8. Rook h1. And now we can make the knight move, so we can easily break the coordination. To make the knight or the bishop move, we can go b5, because if bishop takes, we'll go to e1 square, and if knight takes, rook e2 breaks, and they resigned because they couldn't stop b4. If they try a3 again, we can play a5 and then get onto b4. They won't be able to stop b4, so the coordination is broken. So going back, we can see here is great understanding about the compensation. Okay. So his point of view is very much different among the greatest professional players. There are so many great players, but Garry is one outstanding player. He has a great point of view here, like because in general it looks like the pawn is so weak, but Garry's approach is so different because of the dynamic chess. So he's able to take some position which looks inferior, but there are so many hidden dynamics. So you can see normally c5 won't even come to consideration normally, because it look at first sight it looks like hanging, but his dynamic chess understanding is so great. So he plays c5, and after takes knight d7, and remaining we saw pawn push takes, and now the piece activity. So take knight c5, queen queen d1, then knight e6, piece activity once again, and d4 based on strong compensation. So we have a lot of compensation here. So this is Garry's style of play. He has like won so many games in this kind of style. There are so many games. That's because of his deep understanding about the dynamic chess. So you can learn a lot of things from Garry Kasparov if you're able to understand the science behind the dynamic chess. As I told you, like you have to focus on these elements, like these concepts like initiative, imbalance, momentum, flexibility, and compensation. Only if you are able to understand these concepts, you can start playing more stronger chess, and you can make strong piece sacrifice, because piece sacrifice works based on these ideas. So there is a mastery required to make strong piece sacrifice, and these players are really good at that. So we'll see other elements and key ideas in upcoming lessons. Okay, thank you.